You're listening to Entrepreneur Encounter, the podcast where soft skills meet real talk for creative business owners who are building with purpose. I'm Dana, a Pinterest marketing strategist and agency owner helping wedding pros and creative entrepreneurs get seen without burning out.
And I'm Sarah, a business and team strategist who helps small teams and podcasters communicate clearly, lead with empathy, and grow sustainably. Together, we're unpacking the messy, meaningful side of entrepreneurship, from boundaries to burnout, leadership to listening, so you can build a business that actually fits your life. So recently, I had asked our audience, what is something that they would like to learn or hear from us? Because we want to make sure that you, the listeners, are getting what you want and what you want to learn. So I had asked a question, and Josh Purnell, he is from a Facebook group called Limitless Leadership. And the question that he proposed was the challenges of developing someone who doesn't want to grow. How do you lead someone like that? And that is what we're talking about today.
When there's someone on your team who was once curious, ambitious, or willing to try new things, but now they've stopped growing, or they're not necessarily doing bad work, but they're not evolving or growing or even seeming like they're invested anymore.
Exactly. And as leaders, we often think it's our job to fix it, just shows to somehow make them want to grow. But what we've learned is that approach usually backfires
Heavily. So today we're diving deep into this challenge using our story reflection strategy format. We're going to uncover some real experiences where we got this wrong before we got it right. So, Sarah, I'm going to start with a story that makes me cringe because I handled it so poorly at first. About 2 years ago, I had a client who shall remain nameless, who came to me in desperate need for help. Classic case, they didn't have a lot of views. They had not a whole, but like the traffic to their website was low. And she'd been trying the same approach or trying to piece together different approaches for years with not optimal results. So I went through and did my audit, created a comprehensive strategy that included pin designs, SEO optimization, because even though that's not my title, I know how connected all of these pieces are. So I know enough to give basic advice and effective advice. And then anything higher than that, I do outsource. Content calendars, all of it. I really got granular on the things that she needed.
And that sounds exactly like what she needed, right?
Which is what I thought. But her response was, this seems like way too much work. Can I just keep repinning other people's things or sharing other people's contents? And here's where I made the first mistake is I tried to logic her into wanting to grow and not taking a moment to pinpoint the actual pain point or problem. So I sent her case studies, success stories, more detailed explanations of why the strategy would work. And I basically doubled down on trying to convince her what I thought she needed to do or would want to do.
And so how did that play out?
Obviously not well. She agreed to try things in our calls, and then the next week, nothing would be done. I would send reminders, and this went on back and forth for months. So I was obviously getting frustrated, and then she was getting frustrated because obviously she wasn't seeing the results that she wanted. And so I started questioning whether I was even good at what I was doing. There was a lot of emotional breakdowns on my end on, do I even actually know what I'm talking about?
And that seems so frustrating. And I can feel the frustration too, because we are pouring our hearts out to the people that we're trying to help. And unfortunately, there are times that it does backfire and it kind of sucks.
Ultimately what happened, for anyone that's curious, is we ended up parting ways because instead of trying to convince her, I reminded myself that I have taken the time to learn this skill and craft and dove into the data that I know works. But enough about my problem. What is yours? Because I know I'm sure you have one too.
Yeah, no, definitely. There was one time way back when I was working with a team member, and he was really great at like the technical side of podcasts. Like I am all about podcast operations and all the behind the scenes with that aspect, but when it comes to the technical side such as editing, that is why the clients that I work with, we hire people to do the editing. But they really struggled with communication to us and, communicating like why things are late and this and that and project management. Why are things not going like not due on time, essentially?
And what was the turning point?
So, what I ended up doing was I offered coaching sessions on professional development on soft skills. And the team member was basically saying, like, I'm good at what I do, but so why do I need to learn all this other stuff? I just want to edit the show. And this is when I started to realize I was spending more energy trying to develop him than he was spending the energy trying to develop himself. I was getting frustrated. And I want this for everybody. I want people to be successful in their role. This team member was completely content and staying exactly where he was.
I think that's a big realization or light bulb moment or like wake up call is typically, like in my case, for my client, they thought I would just go in and magically make Pinterest work without having to change anything. And so through that, and that kind of with this, we have varying definitions of what growth actually means. And so that would have, should have, would have, and should have been the better starting point of asking for that clarification. What do you mean by growth? And that sounds like a silly question, but that's how you navigate how to help someone grow in the first place. So, what I thought was stubbornness probably was more of a fear of what growth would mean or the change that comes with growing. And that was the big thing that I learned from that experience.
And this takes me back to the episode of last week that we were talking about inquiring questions, like asking the open ended questions to figure out where they want to go and what is, understanding what growth means to them or what X, Y, and Z means for them. So, what do we learn from these experiences? The first big insight is that resistance is usually driven by fear, not laziness or stubbornness.
Exactly. So, like, once I dug deeper than like surface level with this client, I did discover that she was slightly terrified because her blog was her creative outlet from her stressful job. The idea of turning it into something bigger felt overwhelming because it might take the joy out of it. So I had to navigate that a little bit better than just I'm coming in and we're changing everything. So I explained that we're not changing that process, just the sharing process of her blog.
Yeah. And with a team member that I was working with, I eventually realized he wasn't being difficult. He was scared that if he took on these soft skills, he'd be asked to do less, like asked to do less work that he actually loved. And he saw growth as a threat to his identity, as like, why do I need to learn these soft skills to do my job?
Which is huge. And so many things could be said about that. But I've read somewhere that this kind of fear, whether it's fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of rejection, or insert whatever it is, can actually turn into cynicism if we don't address it. People will start believing that growth isn't possible or even worth it because they will never achieve it, basically. Like it's just out of reach for them.
Which leads us to our second insight. You cannot force curiosity and ambition. I was trying so hard to make my team member want to grow, but you can't manufacture that desire in someone else. They have to be curious, they have to be ambitious. Yes, I want you to succeed, but it's up to you to take what I give you and learn in your own time, in your capacity. Like, I don't want to take your job away from you. Of course, I want to still give you tasks, but I want to make sure that you are successful. Maybe that's my weakness, so to speak. Like, I always tell people this. I want you to be successful, and I want to be there for you, but it's only up to them on if they are going to want to grow.
This is hitting at the time of this recording extremely close to home on a more personal level. Not going into full on details, but me and my husband are trying to figure out one of our kids is having a tough time right now. And he's like, well, I just need help with my thoughts. And I was like, but if you don't tell us you're having negative thoughts or like this fear of rejection, we'll use that as an example, or fear of failure, we can't help you. However, I did point out as parents, we already almost like pre plan, but that's also the planner in me of like helping you build that resilience ahead of time of having these breathing techniques that calm you down because I use them on a daily basis, or having like therapy, having someone to talk to, creative outlets. We have given you the tools and resources. And just in the case of this, like we can't force the curiosity, or we can't force you to use these educational or professional development things to not make you, help you grow, but we can provide them, but we can't force you to use them. And to show my complete Southern side, it's very similar to you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. Like
Hmm.
we can give you all the things, but we can't force it. I mean, we can force it to be implemented, but it's not going to sink in to the level that like we want it to. It has to be internal. It has to be something that they are either want to do or are ready to do.
So the third thing we learned is there's a crucial difference between someone who's stuck but willing versus someone who's stuck and resistant.
I was going to say, can you explain the difference? Because I'm sure it's minute, but it's worth explaining.
So stuck but willing means they're showing signs of trying, just not talking about it, but actually making attempts. And even if they're struggling, stuck in resistance means they won't even try, despite having the safety and support from me, from, whomever that they have the support from. So we can give the resources. And if we start to see they are trying and they're stuck, then as leaders, we need to kind of figure out like where they're stuck.
Absolutely. I think then it becomes a shift of why aren't you growing, to what we have talked about before is celebrating the small. So they tried to change, grow, develop. And I'm sure it wasn't 100% of a failure. At the bare minimum, it was a learning case. And so we learned something new, and we should celebrate the fact that we learned something. So as the leader, that's what I do with my kids. And as I'm growing my team, that's essentially what I'm going to be doing with them. They could have tried. As they try, we're going to like celebrate the fact that they did take action and they tried, but also find, even if it's a small win, point that out so that they can then begin recognizing those things too. Because that's how resilience is built, is by those small baby steps as opposed to like some big grand leap. So, on that same mindset or like flow, let's get practical. What do you actually do when you encounter someone who seems to have just stopped growing?
So that goes into strategy number one. You want to see beyond their behavior first. When someone is being stubborn or resistant, ask yourself, what might they be afraid of? What past experience might be driving this response? So, if, for example, for myself, going from working under somebody that was not great, you know, they're in leadership, but they were not a great leader. And then going to working for myself, and there's like this mindset shift. There's just like these, oh, I can set boundaries for myself. Although, yes, you can still set boundaries when you're working under leadership. But to me, there was difference between that. So obviously, starting my own business and going into that journey, I was kind of afraid. I was like, so I get to do this myself. And then I started to learn different skills on personal professional development and learning how my past experience can trigger some things, but then as time went on, learn from that.
I love it. I love that it's the curiosity is there. Like we might be something that I say often, and I think I've said honestly since college, is feel the fear and do it, but do it anyway. I don't honestly couldn't tell you where that came from. I'm sure it came from the internet somewhere if someone wants to find it and tell me so I can source it. But instead of getting frustrated with that resistance or letting the fear of being a business owner in the first place stop you from growing and working towards your full potential, get curious and like try and pinpoint that one thing so that you can create some sort of safety net or collaborative community that you can go to help navigate and reassure you that this is a good thing. You're doing the right things. Offer small tweaks and guidance, but still in a motivational, you got this sort of way.
Yes, you got this. You're doing great.
I got this.
Strategy number 2, create safety. You want to reassure them that trying and experimenting and even failing won't be punished. Just like Dana said, like celebrate them, and say, hey, like, I see that you're trying. You're doing amazing. And because if we don't do that, you're leaving people in the dark. This is what I'm not going to go into too much detail because this can go way off topic. But when you have people in your space, whether that's your clients, your team members, partners, whomever, if you are trying to help them grow and like you onboard a client or you onboard a team member and you're just like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then you leave them in the dark. You're not creating that space. You're not creating a safe space where they can come to you, the open door policy, and have conversations with you and not be afraid to come to you with questions and, suggestions on the work that's happening.
I think that leads perfectly into the next one, which is shifting. Honestly, not even shifting. I'm going to say recognizing how you define success. I think too often we get caught up in someone else's success story and thinking that's what it should be for me. When in fact, I think it is a trend, and normally I'm like, go away from trends, but it was a trend that I actually got behind on, and it was like, I'm rich because, and it listed very personal things, and none of it was monetary. So shifting your focus or recognizing how you uniquely define success is going to be a very big win for you or for your teammate. Instead of focusing on performance goals, how are they executing something? Are they learning something? Are they exploring something? What are they discovering? Like tie into these things. I mean, we do want to measure certain things, performance goals, but that can't be the end all of your review or audit of this team member.
Exactly. When it comes to the reviews and the performance reviews, if we look at our analytics on social media, like, oh, we only have 5 views, like that's like wrong. Or, we get so caught up in those numbers. But I believe that, yes, that's a low number according to social media standards. But to me, I'm like, 5 people saw that. That is a win for me. Like, I think that's awesome. Like, it all depends on what's going on, what you're looking at. Like you said, Dana, are they willing to grow? Are they putting in the effort? And not everybody goes at the same pace. When you think about back in like school, yes, in elementary school, you're supposed to read at this type of level, but some kids go a little differently, but they exceed in other ways. So you have to kind of like figure out that balance. Strategy number 4, model curiosity yourself. So I'm curious. I'm curious all the time. I want to know the ins and outs. I want to ask questions. I want to talk openly. And this is what you should encourage your team, your clients, talk openly about things you're learning, the mistakes that you've made, and the experiments that you're running. Make growth feel normal instead of threatening.
I think this one, like I am also very curious, but I don't often share my curiosity because I feel like on a face forward, client facing point of view, I need to be the expert who already has it all figured out. So when I started sharing my own Pinterest experiments, some that worked, some that flopped, it honestly helps my clients or even potential clients be willing to try this platform in the first place. Because I often hear, that's such a great idea. I really should be utilizing this platform. The curiosity is there, but then it's overwhelming because they don't know what to do with it. Well, I've already done all that. Well, what do I do with it? Mindset or work failures and successes. And so by sharing that from the get go, I think it does what I've learned anyway, is it creates that know like trust factor. So aside from Pinterest, just working with teams or with clients, you're instilling that curiosity from the beginning. And then they're more open or willing to experiment too, because they trust that you're not just going to set it and forget it. You're going to stay curious. You're going to stay on the lookout for things that are going to help them grow and move forward confidently.
Confidently, yes. That's another thing too, like, I feel as there are some people that are not confident in themselves. I know for me, there's many a times when I'm just like, I'm not confident in this at all. I know we've talked about this many times. When we started this podcast, I was the way I am now versus then, I was not confident at all. Now I'm just like, let's just have fun with it and go with the flow. But yes, but it's again, it's like up to you and how you want to push forward with that growth. So strategy number 5, challenge with compassion. You can still push people to grow, but do it gently by questioning it, like not attacking them, but you can still, again, going back to being curious, like you don't want to grow. Why? Like asking why questions to kind of figure out where they're coming from.
I think the quickest way to piss someone off or have them get defensive is to say you're wrong about that or you're wrong in general, whatever it is. Instead, open up with questions or start the conversation with an open-ended question of, well, what if that's not true? Or help me understand why you want to stick to this strategy. Or what would success actually look like for you if we did XYZ for this quarter? You can essentially invite them to think differently and not force them to. And I think as you ask questions like that, you just naturally start thinking about it anyway. It may not be immediately, but it could be on their drive home and they're like, their mind is wandering and maybe replaying that conversation, like, oh, blah, blah, like you just don't know when it's going to sink in.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
probably not going to be immediate, but it will be an immediate shutdown if you start like right off the bat, you're wrong because no one likes that.
No, that's, again, going back to like asking questions and understanding, everybody has their thoughts and opinions on things, but digging deeper should, in my opinion, be okay. But like when you say, like, no, no, that's not right, that's not how we do things, that don't do that.
Which leads us kind of into our last strategy suggestion is just knowing when to let go. I know that's probably the hardest one that we've listed, but sometimes the most compassionate thing that you can do is acknowledge that you are just not the right fit with a certain person. And either whether it's right now in this specific spot in their journey or just overall, your two personalities do not mesh well. Like if someone is stuck but willing, showing those small signs of trying, you can keep working with them, but maybe it's in a different capacity. Maybe it's not client facing, but maybe it's, hey, here's a network thing, like a community, and let's part ways in this aspect, but let's stay in contact so when you are ready to grow in the ways that I can specifically help you, we can partner back up, if that makes sense. But if they're stuck and resistant over time, despite the like psychological safety and support and compassion that you've given them, it really might be time to part ways. And just like with the client that I was talking about earlier, I genuinely was having emotional breakdowns in my co-working space to the point, like, because I don't like to do that in my public space. And it was so psychological, like mentally draining. And it was so awful. Like I couldn't keep it in. I would just like have a breakdown at my desk and trying to convince myself and remind myself, like, I do actually know what I'm doing. I not only am just passionate about this, but I'm passionate enough that I've dove into the education to know how to do this. So parting ways doesn't have to be out of anger or frustration. I did have to take some deep breaths before I said I sent my email, but growth is non negotiable for me. And it was my responsibility to stick to my mission and my values and to part ways with them so that I could continue to grow and to be able to have the capacity to support someone else who is also ready to grow.
Yes, I believe that so much because I've been in workspaces where person A is late to work 2 times and gets fired. But they put in all the work, they did all the things, professional development, personal development, and all, and then you got person B who is just not doing anything, like not putting in the work, just kind of doing the bare minimum, all the things. And it always makes you wonder, like, are people picking and choosing? Well, they did something bad once, so they're gone. But this person over here is just kind of trucking along. And it can be hard because I've been on both ends. I've had to let go of people because of certain things. And it sucks because now you feel like the bad person essentially, because if you let go of someone, but you tried, you put in all the work, you're doing all the things to help them, but you can't help them unless they want to help themselves. And then, you can say, hey, like, if you ever do need help and you are ready, I will be here.
Absolutely. So the common thread is you can't force curiosity. You can create environments and conditions where growth can feel safe and productive, attractive, however you want to describe it, but you cannot force something to grow.
Exactly. Just like how if I'm like, I want to drink more water, and I tell you, Dana, tell me to drink more water every day. And if you tell me that every day and then I don't do it, that's a me problem, not you. Like, you're holding up your end of the deal. But if I'm not, then you're like, okay, well, if you don't want to do it, then I'm out of here.
That's a very good example. That's also a personal goal. So I'm laughing on the inside that you brought that up. So I did not drink enough water yesterday. But you're correct. I mean, we can't force it. So there you have it, you guys.
Yes.
Our deep dive into what to do when someone on your team stops growing or you have a struggle with a client who is questioning all of your growth strategies is the biggest takeaway is your job isn't to force anyone to want to grow. Your job is to create that psychological safety, model curiosity, challenge with compassion, and respect people's choices, including their choice to stay where they are and just support them until they're ready to grow.
And then also know that sometimes the most loving and professional thing you do is acknowledge when someone's resistance is constantly harming the team or the mission and to make the hard decision to let them go. If you're currently dealing with this situation, let's talk. I would love for you to send me a message on Instagram so that we can just kind of talk to your specific situation with someone who's been there. I can help you see it more clearly. And that information is going to be in the show notes.
And if you, our listeners, are at a space where you are curious about different growth strategies and how to cultivate a web of growth funnels, then reach out to me. And my information will be in the show notes. I would love to get a DM from you on Instagram or just email me directly.
We thank you all for tuning in today. And also, thank you, Josh, for this amazing topic. So, yes, all of our information is going to be in the show notes. Until next time.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If something in this episode gave you a fresh perspective, share it with a friend or send us a DM. We love hearing how these conversations land with you.
And if you're curious about how soft skills can support your next season of growth, we each have more resources to share.
You can find Dana on Instagram at danas.desk.nc for Pinterest strategy and intentional marketing.
And Sarah at URembert for team development, business leadership, and podcast support.
Until next time, keep leading with purpose
and growing with intention.